All right, today we are jumping headfirst into the world of one of the most radical and, intentionally shocking thinkers of the 20th century, the French philosopher Georges Bataille. So, get ready, because this is not your typical philosophy class.
Let's just start with this quote right here. When the leader of the Surrealist movement, a group that was all about pushing boundaries, calls you an excremental philosopher, you know you're dealing with someone on a whole other level. That really tells you something about the impression Bataille made.
It's a heck of a title, isn't it? The Metaphysician of Evil. It just begs the question, what kind of philosophy is built on embracing the very things we're taught to fear and hide away? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dig into. Okay, so to get our heads around his pretty wild ideas, we're going to move through 5 parts. We'll start with who he was, dive into his core concepts like heterology and the accursed share, look at the big battle in his philosophy, and then see why he still matters today.
So let's start with the man himself, Georges Bataille. Because to really understand his ideas, you kind of have to understand the guy who was standing right in the middle of some of the craziest intellectual movements of his time.
What's wild is just how much ground he covered. This guy wasn't just some dusty philosopher. No, he was writing about economics, about art, even about pornography. He hung out with the Surrealists for a bit before they had a huge falling out. And he didn't just want to debate you. He talked about intellectual violence. His whole goal was to write things that would genuinely get under your skin, to shock you out of your comfortable everyday thinking.
Okay, so this brings us to his core project. See, Bataille wasn't just being shocking for the sake of it. He was trying to build a whole new way of looking at the world, a new science he called heterology.
And the name itself gives you a huge clue. Heterology comes from the Greek heteros, which just means other or different. So this was his science of the other. A science dedicated to studying everything our neat and tidy society considers waste or taboo, all the stuff we try to push away.
He actually gives us a really powerful way to picture this. Imagine that our modern, rational society is like a perfectly clean, minimalist room. Everything in it is useful and has a purpose. But to keep it that clean, you have to take all the garbage, the filth, the stuff that doesn't belong, and you violently shove it into a closet and lock the door. Well, Bataille's heterology is all about finding the key to that closet, opening the door, and taking a long, hard look at what's inside.
And this leads us to the big question. What is in that closet? Bataille had a name for it, la part maudite, which translates to the accursed share.
And this is where things get really intense. The accursed share isn't just physical trash. It's everything that's unproductive, excessive, and forbidden. We're talking about things like ritual sacrifice, pure violence, and even the messy, biological, bodily parts of ourselves that our rational minds try so hard to pretend don't exist.
So why do we throw these things out? Well, for Bataille, it's pretty simple. You can't have order unless you define what's disorderly. You can't call something clean without pointing to something else and calling it filth. He argued that our entire idea of a rational society is literally built on top of the violent rejection of this accursed part of who we are.
This gets us to the absolute heart of the conflict in Bataille's work. He saw pretty much the entire history of Western civilization as one long, brutal battle between two things: the clean, orderly project of reason and the messy, chaotic reality of the body.
You can really see it as a showdown between two teams. On one side, you've got what he called the homogenizing project. This is the world of reason, order, efficiency, capitalism, a system that wants everything to be useful and predictable. But on the other side, you've got the heterogeneous. That's the body, desire, waste, sacrifice, everything that is gloriously unproductive. And Bataille's point is that the first side is always trying to crush the second.
Now, he wasn't just making this up out of nowhere. He was inspired by thinkers like the Marquis de Sade, who argued that reason itself isn't some neutral, helpful guide. No, reason is a form of power. It's a weapon that society uses to tame our desires and beat our bodies into submission, all for the sake of order and, especially today, economic productivity. So, let's wrap this all up. Why does this philosopher of the obscene, of all things, still matter? Well, because after he died, his work didn't just fade away. In fact, it kind of exploded.
He published his most famous book, The Accursed Share, in 1949, and things were quiet for a while. But then, in the 1960s, his work was rediscovered, and it became totally essential for a whole new generation of thinkers, the post-structuralists.
Big names like Derrida, Kristeva, and Baudrillard grabbed his ideas about waste and excess and just ran with them, completely changing the game for philosophy.
When you step back, you see that Bataille was part of this bigger tradition, with guys like Nietzsche and Freud who are also poking holes in the idea that reason is king. But what made Bataille so different, so shocking, was his scatological emphasis, his absolute fearless focus on the base, the filthy, the forbidden.
And this leaves us with one final kind of provocative thought. Bataille wanted to unleash these suppressed forces, to kick open that closet door. But look around us today. Has the accursed share really been set free? Or has our world just found a way to take all our desires for violence, for excess, for the taboo, put them in a shiny package, and sell them right back to us? It's a question you have to think Bataille himself would have found